is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck as we dive into the postseason. K-State going into the Big 12 tournament. Now back at least on the Joe Lunardi bracketology graphic. Can they play their way into the NCAA tournament? We'll discuss what it will take here on the show. No matter what happens, make sure that you support our friends at Holiday Distillery with some 360 vodka or some Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. They've got you hooked up no matter which you prefer, and you can tailgate, if you want to call it that, the game. You can have it in a nice glass as you watch at home. However you want to do it, make sure you go out and grab that. They are great K-State folks who support us here on the pod. So we appreciate our friends at Holiday Distillery. K-State heads into the Big 12 tournament, not playing on Tuesday. They avoid that fate by winding up as the 10 seed. They're in the 7-10 game against Texas at 6 o'clock on Wednesday. So that is big because I guess we can start the bidding here. K-State, by virtue of beating Iowa State, avoids having to play a game against West Virginia on Tuesday, and then you would wind up playing Kansas on Wednesday and then have to play Baylor on Thursday. Now, I know K-State did just lose to Kansas by 20-plus in Lawrence. It may be a different-looking Kansas team depending on what they're going to do with Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, and they're pretty beat up right now. But you would certainly rather have the draw of, hey, not play Tuesday in a game that's not going to help you very much and have to use some energy to go win that game. And then you get Texas, which I don't feel horrible about, and then playing Iowa State, that seems a lot better than Houston, for sure, if that were going to be the route that you would have to go. So, I don't know. All things considered, this seems like a pretty solid draw for K-State, considering where they were at.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of other alternatives that you would probably rather have. Maybe you do want to play KU if they don't have McCullough or Dickinson. I don't know.
I guess we could debate that, but you would have had to play the first game.
Yeah, and I don't. And like you said, it was probably more significant to not have to play on Tuesday than getting KU. I get it, but like a KU without McCullough or Dickinson, like that team could be pretty. That's a decimated group.
But DY, how much credit do you get from the committee though? Right? Would they say, well, you beat KU, it's a quad one win, but they didn't have their two best players, so
they might qualify that pretty hard. You're right.
Yeah,
no, that's probably an excellent point that I didn't consider. That probably needs to be considered. The only thing is sometimes I think the committee can also get pretty, zeroed in on those team sheets, where all they see is a quad one win and maybe don't qualify that. They don't dig into it enough. There is that possibility as well. There is multiple ways to look at it. But when you take into consideration the possibility that they qualify your win over KU if they don't have Dickinson and McCullough, and then you have to play on Tuesday, which is you're expending energy for zero payback. You say very little. There's zero. You beat West Virginia. That does nothing to your resume. It's not a quad one win. It's nothing. So you get to start on Wednesday. No energy expended. You play a team that you probably think that you can beat. And on Thursday, you play a team that you just beat a few days ago. So all things considered, this is a very conceivable route. And for my view, the committee's not going to ask me, Kansas State beats Texas, beats Iowa State during the tournament. They're probably in Dayton, though.
Yeah. Well, so it looked like we assumed as of Saturday afternoon, I'm sorry, because we're recording this on Sunday. We just assumed TCU was going to beat UCF in Fort Worth and that K-State would be playing TCU once again in its opening round of the Big 12 tournament, which actually would not provide as much value to Kansas State, right? TCU is 38th, 39th in the net. Now, it would still be a quad one win because top 50 net teams are quad one victories on a neutral court. And I think TCU may be a little bit more of a winnable game. I think it might be a little bit more of an easier opponent than Texas. Texas can really get hot and blow some teams out. We saw what they did in Lubbock just a couple weeks ago with Texas Tech. They played really well against Oklahoma on Saturday, although that was in Austin. But Texas is 25th in the net. And so Jimmy, KSU _ I had asked earlier, I was like, so how do you define a quad 1A win versus quad one? Because he lists those quad 1A wins. Well, K-State has 3 quad 1A wins, which is top 15 wins at home, which is Baylor, who's 14th in the net, Iowa State 9th in the net, and BYU that's 12th in the net. So they got 3 quad 1A wins, which is good. And then a quad 1A win on a neutral court is anybody in the top 25, and a quad 1A win on the road is anyone in the top 40 of the net, according to Jimmy. And so Texas is right on the cusp. Right now, they would be a quad 1A win. Now, K-State beating them could knock them out of that, right? But besides that, it's a higher quality win for Kansas State if they win it on a neutral court. It does a little bit more for your resume. It gives you 5 quad 1 victories all at the minimum, right? And those are all top 30 quad 1 wins. Like, these aren't like 60th ranked on the road and the net, quad 1 win. These are top tier quad 1 wins against very good opponents that K-State would have. And then you got Villanova on the cusp sitting at 32 as we record on Sunday in the net ranking. So I think winning against Texas would do a lot for your profile. And then I think they got to win too, right? So I think they got to beat Texas, and I think they got to beat Iowa State. And if they do that, I think they're in, because Iowa State 9th in the net, a neutral court win away from home against a team with that profile. I think K-State's top 60 in the net at that point and has 6 to 7 quad 1 wins, and I don't think they could be left out.
I'm getting the feeling that is probably where it's going to go. And some of it is too, Lenardi right now has K-State as the first team in that little next category. So not the first 4 out, not the next 4 out. They would be like the 9th team out of the field. Some of this also too, of course, as always, is contingent on who's winning conference tournaments, who else on the bubble is going to win games. But I also, every year Lenardi's bracketology changes about an hour before the actual selection show comes out, right? I mean, he's not going to be perfect here, and I do feel like we're at least seeing some buzz on social media of some people pointing out, like, hey, I know I mentioned it in the last show, but look at the difference between K-State and Mississippi State. Is there really that much difference there because of the quality of and caliber of wins that K-State has? So you may start to see, especially if they're coming in having won 3 straight against Iowa State, and Texas, I think you may see more of a groundswell of that start to come up, and hopefully that can help push you over the edge. So I tend to agree. The feeling that I get is that if you do win 2 here, you've got a very good chance to be in Dayton and be in the field.
Yeah. And when we say win 2 and get into Dayton, is because that typically your computer metrics aren't prohibitive to making the NCAA tournament. Even though if it does go into it a little bit, it's not prohibitive. But every team that's kind of made the NCAA tournament with pretty poor computer numbers like K-State has, as an at-large bid, has gone to Dayton. So that would be your route most likely if you're winning 2. If you win 3 and make it to the championship, maybe that's a different conversation altogether. To touch on your point, comparing K-State to Mississippi State, Kansas State lost that head here, so some people will roll their eyes, I get it. But go look at the difference in resume just between Kansas State and TCU, especially in quality wins, and how those numbers stack up.
What about Oklahoma? Dude, Oklahoma is another one at this point that...
What I will say is Oklahoma was so good in quad 2 that if you combine quad 1 and quad 2, that's what's making their resume. So that's
they don't have as much on the upper end like what Cole was talking about as what K-State has.
Correct. But because there's another way that the committee attacks this that they've said before, like in the post shows, is like quad 1 and quad 2. What's your record? So if Oklahoma gets to combine that quad 1, quad 2, they look far better. And for TCU, it's that they did more work on the road than K-State because they're 6 and 5 on the road.
Yeah, I think that's it with TCU, because if you look at TCU's actual profile now, they have a really nice win, the 1-point victory at home over Houston, who hardly anyone has beaten in this league, and they won a triple overtime game at Baylor. And that's what stands out on TCU's profile. But you could make a very good case that K-State and TCU has similar profiles in terms of the overall quads, to the point of Oklahoma. BY is right, but they also have only beaten 2 NCAA tournament projected teams on the season. They beat BYU and they beat Iowa State, and both of those games occurred in Norman. They don't, they had some wins that we thought were going to look better in the non-con. They won at USC, or a neutral court game against USC, but we saw what happened to USC over the course of the season, et cetera. So I think you can make a very strong case that K-State should, be right there with Oklahoma and TCU. And the fact, I think my biggest issue, guys, is there's this conceivable gap between the two. Like, Oklahoma and TCU are considered shoe-ins, and K-State's the 9th, 10th team projected out. Like, why is there a 15 to 20 team gap between those two profiles. And maybe there isn't in the committee's eyes. We don't know what they're viewing K-State as. Right now, we just know what Jerry Palm, Joe Lenardi, and some of those bracketologists are saying. But very well, the committee could be like thinking K-State right now, if they look at a blinded team sheet, is that fourth, fifth team out, and that TCU, Oklahoma are closer to them than what we believe.
Well, that's what I was going to pull up here. If I can buy enough time, someone literally did that on Twitter yesterday, put the blind resumes up of not any of the Big 12 teams, but it was K-State and Mississippi State. Here it is. Jeff, it's the basketball predictions blog, good old basketball predictions. Everybody knows. It's where you go for your basketball info. Team A, 19-11 versus Team B, 18-13. Team A is 33rd in net strength of schedule. Team B is 22nd in net strength of schedule. Team A is 3-8 against Quad 1. Team B is 4-7. Team A is 7-10 against Quads 1 and 2. Team B is 8-13. Team A has 1 Quad 3 or 4 loss. Team B has 0. So K-State's Team B here. They've got the records I would say are pretty much a wash. 19-11, 18-13, whatever. It's close. 20. They've got a higher strength of schedule, 22nd net strength of schedule, 1 more Quad 1 win, 1 less Quad 1 loss. 7-10 Quads 1 and 2 versus 8-13 Quads 1 and 2. 0 Quad 3 or 4 losses as opposed to 1 for Mississippi State there. And the point here is not like, K-State's like a slam dunk better resume than that. The point is that Mississippi State is considered an 8 or a 9 and safely in the field, and K-State here is sitting 8 teams out. That's the point being raised.
And what I will say in that, and I do say that that's definitely similar, but what sticks out like a sore thumb again for K-State, and KSU_fan made this good comment on this, I think, on our K-State Alliance message board and maybe on Twitter as well, X, whatever you want to call it, is that when you do line up K-State against the likes of a TCU or Oklahoma, or when you do line up K-State against the other teams on the bubble, what sticks out negatively for K-State, like a sore thumb, is not just what you did away from Bramlage Coliseum, but also your Quad 2. You have more Quad 2 losses than just about anyone.
I take a little bit of a issue. Like if I look at Villanova and Providence, they're projected right now to be ahead of K-State, right? Well, K-State beat both those teams head-to-head. One was on a neutral floor. Why is Villanova considered that far ahead? Now, I know they're right on the cusp like last year, but they're 17-14.
I will say, I forget, one of Palmer or Lenardi does not even have them as next for it.
Okay, well then Providence was a little bit ahead of K-State in the latest, and they have 5 Quad 1s, which is good, but they have 7 Quad 1 and Quad 2s combined. K-State's sitting with 8 in the combined. But anyways.
And I know we got to go to a break, and we can. But and then we come through with the wrestling of the idea. Maybe we could talk about this on the other side of the break. Do you still root for Providence and Villanova to make movement, or do you need them to actually get bad losses now so you can jump them on the bubble?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That stuff I don't know that you can really worry about too much. Like, who the hell knows, dude? I don't. That seems like a fool's errand to try and figure out what you should be actually rooting for there. I think you root for 2. Like, the bottom line is not only 2 wins to add a couple more Quad 1s to your resume, but getting a couple wins away from Bramlage would go a long way toward helping out you.
That's more than
your weakest point. Yeah, your weakest point in that resume. So, no weak points on the resume of Home Field Apparel, especially not after their latest drop. They've got a new K-State drop out there, some awesome stuff. I love the shooting shirts, like old school, like K-State from the 70s or 80s, like shooting shirts. Cole thinks that he wouldn't be brave enough to wear it. I would wear it at any time, anywhere. No doubt about that. They've got great old school like snapback hats out there now. I really enjoyed the new drop. They've got a 1977 Big 8 Champs t-shirt that was pretty sweet.
Best drop in a while.
I'm digging it. Yeah, homefieldapparel.com is where you can get on that. And promo code 3MA23 if you want 15% off your first order. What better time than now? There's a new drop of K-State gear at homefieldapparel.com. Promo code 3MA23, get 15% off your first order. We are back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. KCSN.substack.com.
As far as the matchup goes, to get these wins that we're talking about here, you got to win the games to make it count and make all this discussion really relevant. Texas beat you 62-56 in Austin. Another one of those games where K-State just didn't have much offensively. They shot 36% from the floor for the game, 26% from three, and fell behind into a pretty deep hole and made the crazy comeback at the end to get it closer than you thought that it should be really at the end of the game. And the comeback ran just out of gas, but it was a similar sort of story that we've seen in a handful of games this year. Cincinnati is one, although they did get over the top and then lost the lead, but also BYU. You know, I mean, this same story played out so many times throughout the season in Big 12 play, especially in road games against good teams, and just weren't able to hold on for a win. Texas was kind of in that same vein. Well, they did play pretty well defensively. You know, I mean, holding Texas to 62 points. I'm not overly intimidated by Texas or anything going into this game, especially when you're going to be playing in Kansas City. You figure you will have a crowd advantage there for that game. I feel pretty good about this at least being as winnable a game as you could ask for playing on Wednesday in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, they don't intimidate me. Now, they are a hot and cold team, so if you get them at their best, you might be in trouble because their best is pretty elevated compared to the rest of the league. Maybe outside of Houston and Baylor, I want to say. The reason why I omit Iowa State is because I think they hit their upside most of the time. So that's why I'm not really judging that. But teams that kind of fluctuate a little bit, you know, Texas is a top two or three team in the league based on that. So if you get their best, you might be in for a long night. But yeah, they don't really intimidate me. The Big 12 actually just released our awards. This is a guy that does worry me. He was just named the Big 12's most improved player this year. It's Dylan Dessou. I don't think Kansas State has a great matchup for him, especially since they bring David Gasson off the bench now a little bit. So that probably bunks things up a little bit. But no, I think this is a winnable game. And, you know, this is kind of the, you know, more of the bracketology episode. You know, like, obviously you have to beat Texas, you have to beat Iowa State. And John touched on this, and you know, before we went to break too, is you got to be leery of team stealing bids almost, right? And I know it's going to be a talking point now for the next week, is that the Missouri Valley gets one bid or two bids, just because Drake upset Indiana State in the championship game.
Yeah, and on that subject, I would just say, and I think you probably agree, Indiana State has one quad one win, and it's at Bradley, who's not making the tournament. So I don't think Indiana State should have a case. But
no, they shouldn't. But there's a lot of people pushing for it.
Yeah, they will.
It seems like a charity case more than anything.
I can already see it if they get left out. Dick Vitale crying on the air about. I obviously hope Dick Vitale. I think he just got cleared to speak, and I like Dick Vitale actually, but he'll get upset.
What are you doing? Coming after Dick?
Yeah, I single one man out.
No, I like, but you know what? You know how it is. Like, he always gets upset every year about like one or two mid majors that get left out of the field.
Headline from this podcast: Cole loves cancer. That's what.
Okay, God. No, he's cleared. He's healthy now. He's going to be able to speak about the tournament. I love all the things that Dick Vitale is about. Everything he does for pediatric cancer and all of that. So
we just made you give like a serious explanation for why.
I know some people get annoyed with him, like for yelling and being loud and think it's obnoxious sometimes. But I actually really have a ton of respect for him for all he does. So yes, thanks, John, for making me have to, defend myself there and make sure it's very clear that I think he does a lot of great things. Just spent 2 minutes on Indiana State and Dick Vitale. Damn it. You guys distracted me into that, baited me. Anyways, so on the Texas front, yeah, Dylan Dessou's a matchup problem. I think he had 20 points in the matchup against K-State. K-State actually held Max Asmus, who's second team all Big 12, and what just came out of the coaches. They held Asmus to his second or third worst offensive rating now on the entire season. The thing that just scares you is like both those guys, Asmus is nearly 17 points per game, 43% from the floor, 37% from three. He can get super hot on any given night. We just saw him torch the nets at Baylor down in Waco the other night. He had 33 points. He was on fire. So he can get hot any game. You could have a hand in his face and he could get after it. And then obviously Dessou, he's a really hard matchup because he can hit the jump shot. He can hit the mid-range. He's 50% from three. Now, he doesn't attempt a ton of threes, but he's a really versatile big. He was great in the NCAA tournament for them in their Elite Eight run last year as well. So they have some talent. Dylan Mitchell, too, tough, athletic guy, big. Caden Shedrick, another big. And Tyrese Hunter, I think, when they came back against Texas Tech, still lost yesterday down in Lubbock. But when they came back Saturday in Lubbock, Tyrese Hunter, the talented guard that can get hot, too. And I think he scored 25, 30-plus points in that game. So Bart Torvik projects Texas to win this game by 5 points. We know K-State lost in Austin 62-56. They came back to make it a 3 or 4 point game down the stretch, coming from behind. But, the .90 points per possession K-State held Texas to remains the second lowest mark in their 31 games this season. And they were just 3 of 19 from three. K-State defended the heck out of them, but K-State only had 0.82 points per possession, which was the second lowest in their last 29 games. So for Texas defensively, they held K-State to one of their best defensive marks on the year. So it's a good offensive team. Texas is 20th in the country in Ken Palm offense. They're 55th in Ken Palm defense. They're 23rd overall in Ken Palm. They're 25th in the NCAA net rankings. But if you want to look at something favorable, the things that K-State has struggled at a bit, Texas is not a team that's going to turn you over a ton. I actually lied to you. They can turn you over. They're 18.7% turnover rate defensively, which is 75th in the country. But they're 105th in offensive rebounding percentage. They're 232nd in defensive rebounding percentage. They're 257th in free throw rate on the offensive end. And they're 229th in the country in defensive free throw rate. So they put teams on the foul line a decent amount. They don't get to the foul line a ton, and they don't rebound it particularly well.
And they are the defending Big 12 tournament champions.
Oh, I forgot about that. They did win it last year, didn't they? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, well.
And Kansas State has a chance to do the funniest thing, send Texas men and women's basketball out of the Big 12 with L's.
Okay. Are we going to know by the time this comes out, though?
You'll know what the women did.
I was going to say, DY, you got to be careful. That's why I was calculating in my head. I was like, wait, he knows that by the time this comes out on Tuesday, as we record this on Sunday,
Texas can clip it, whatever.
Yeah, DY he could wind up on a Texas message board or something, We appreciate your bravery, Derek. Thank you for doing that here.
The opportunity still exists at this moment of recording time.
Okay, well, before we talk a little Iowa State, then, how are you feeling here? How confident? I don't know that I'll ask you for an outright prediction, but scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that K-State beats Texas?
I'm weird. I've felt good, probably more than I should this year too. So anyone listening trying to gauge their confidence level over how confident I am is probably doing it wrong, but I am fairly confident. I don't know. I feel like a 6.8.
6.8.
But fairly confident as an underdog with the way this team has gone this year. I think 6.8 is fairly confident.
Yeah, no, I think so. This actually, John, reminds me a little bit of remember the 08-09 Big 12 tournament game against Texas? And
I do.
K-State needed that win to get in.
How'd that wind up?
Couldn't stop Dexter Pittman down the stretch, man. Yeah, that didn't
well.
well.
And that's what I worry. Not that they're the same players, but they're Dexter Pittman. That year is probably what Dylan Dessou is right now.
I think Fred Brown probably cost him the game. So
I was just about to say they should have got Fred Brown. If Fred Brown took more shots, if they would have given him the ball more, that wouldn't have been a problem.
I was covering the 2A state basketball tournament in Manhattan in Bramlage Coliseum, and I kept sneaking up to the hospitality room in the Legends room to try to watch the game against Texas. So didn't go as well as planned. Hopefully this is a different result. K-State's played them in the Big 12 tournament since. They beat them, obviously. But it's a big game. Obviously, K-State wins. I'd be curious where K-State would sit after they win this game in that 24 hours before the next game against Iowa State. If they win it, they're 19-13. It obviously depends on what other teams are doing, but is there a chance they could be projected in that 22, 23 hours?
I don't know. You hop that. I mean, considering where Palm and Lenardi had the right now, I don't know if you hop 9 or 10 spots.
Yeah, I was going to say you're not going to get that from Lenardi. I don't know in the committee's eyes. You're certainly not going to get that from Lenardi.
You know why I say that, though? St. John's was the 12th team out, the very last team in the next 4 out a couple weeks ago. They beat Butler by 23, and Lenardi moved them 12 spots to the last team in. So a neutral court win against the number 25 team.
Yeah, and their computer numbers probably took a big jump because it was by the margin of victory there, too, that improved efficiency. Because I think that's when they jumped in the net 12 spots and won 9 as well. So that's what it would take, is also a pretty comfortable victory.
Yeah, no big deal, guys. But Cats, just go out there and win by 15-20. And then they, like, seriously, if they won it by 15-20, they could really improve their metrics. And then we could be sitting there with a close loss to Iowa State, that they would still have, the hope of potentially getting into Dayton. It's going to be hard to, beat Texas and then beat Iowa State. They're going to have a ton of fans down here, Iowa State, looking ahead to that one just because they're having such a great year and they want to escape the hellhole, that they're in. So
K-State will have a good amount, I think, but you are also sharing a session with KU, and I think that plays into it.
I'm going to, Cole, I have the box score pulled up from the 2009 Big 12 tournament. This is
I also
awesome.
am glad we're just playing Texas instead of TCU. I don't know if we've said that, but I'm tired of playing TCU in the Big 12 tournament, even if they are a more beatable team for Quad 1. I'm glad it is Texas instead of them.
I don't want to face Jamie Dixon. I'm tired of seeing his whiny, on the court.
He is kind of a punk, but yeah.
Dexter Pitt had 19 points and 20 rebounds.
Oh, I knew it, man.
Fred Brown only got 5 shots, which is a crime. And then you want to, Cole, guess what Denny Clemente shot from the field in that game? And I love Denny, man. One of my all-time favorites. Love Denny. But guess what Denny Clemente shot from the field that day?
I'm going to guess like 2 of 15.
4 of 20.
We'll say, sorry, you guys keep going about that game.
Well, who was our big guarding Dexter? Was it Ron Anderson?
Well, Ron Anderson came off the bench. It was you. Come on, who started at Cedric?
Luis Scalone.
Yeah, it's like who started and put up 0 points and 1 rebound. And
what did he found? God,
and then he only played 10 minutes. In fairness to him, but Jamar Samuels played a lot off the bench. He had 11 and 7, and then Ron Anderson played 31 minutes off the bench and grabbed 3 rebounds in 31.
What are we doing getting Luis and Ron 4 rebounds and 41 minutes combined? Damn it. Well, all right.
Well, the rest of, they shut down the rest of Texas's roster. AJ Abrams only had 6 points. He only took 4 shots. Damian James had 7. Who could forget Doge Ball Bay? Out there with 6 points. Connor Ashley. I'm trying to see other names that I recognize here. Gary Johnson.
Oh, man.
I'm ready for Kansas State to do something in Kansas City. I've covered Kansas State since 2017, and I'm sure they've won more than one game in Kansas City in that tenure, but maybe only once.
Well, Bruce got him to the Big 12 championship, right? And
they played two times in the span of.
But that's before
they win it two. They win it in 2010 and 2013. So twice in 4 years they made it. Twice in 4 years they made it to the Big 12 championship game.
Well,
so it's been a long time.
That doesn't count because I started covering the team in 17-18 season, and that's the tail end of Bruce, obviously. But even the year they won the Big 12 regular season, even the year they went to the Elite Eight, I don't think they did much. I think there was the one year where Mac went off against KU, but they still lost. That might have been the semifinal.
It was the semis, and then they made it to the semis. DY against Iowa State that one year where Dean was also, I think he was hurt and not playing in that game. In case they was up by like 4. Remember, Cartier Jara had come back from the hand injury and buried like 4 threes in the first half, and K-State was up at the under 4 timeout to go to the Big 12 championship. Now, I think some of us watched that thinking it might be best for them to lose because they needed to get healthy, and Barry and Snead and those guys were beat to hell. But it sucked losing to Iowa State in that because they acted like it was their Super Bowl.
Was that the year they won the Big 12?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's the Super Bowl for the Clones.
He waited the broken foot, right?
Yeah.
So, no, that makes sense. That you're correct on that. Then there was the COVID one where they were the only team to win a game in the Big 12 tournament.
And who knows where that team would have went? If it wasn't for COVID, they had Baylor the next day.
Some are saying they won the Big 12 tournament that year. They won the last game.
It sucks that it got taken away from us.
Some were saying, okay, I'm not gonna allow that to stand. No, nobody was saying that. Nobody.
Was that a Gates? Was that TCU as well?
It was TCU. Yeah.
Oh, it's always TCU.
Iowa State thoughts. Quick thought on if you do get past Texas and you play Iowa State for a second time, short turnaround.
Hit outside shots because that's what they make you do. So hit shots so you can beat them. That's why I think Iowa State is toast once they meet a team that can really hit shots from the outside in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, Iowa State won't make it out of the first weekend. So,
okay, but what about playing them in the Big 12 tournament?
We got to hit shots,
which they do frequently perform well in front of a big crowd. The crowd split on that game would be really interesting. What would that be in the same session as Kansas as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they're going to be in the same session. And, as a team.
I bet the folks at the T-Mobile Center are not happy that Iowa State, KU, and K-State are crammed into the same sessions. Yeah.
John, I've always said team state conference, a little TSC. Jayhawk fans, let's band together, root against Texas on Wednesday, and let's root against Iowa State and the great state of this Kansas. We'll root for you guys. Let's be loyal to each other. Team state conference pride, little go Email flashback with a little TSC action.
Where's KU play Wednesday?
They're going to play West Virginia, Cincinnati.
West winner.
So they could win that game without Dickinson or McCullough.
Yeah, and then they would play Baylor if they win that game. And so, as far as the match,
Baylor fans come to Kansas City.
Yeah. As far as the matchup against Iowa State, I mean, it's obviously DY, the expert analysis, hit shots. Okay. Now hit outside shots. Yeah, you got to shoot it well.
Literally what it is when you play Iowa State.
And it's take care of the basketball, right? Because they're second in turnover percentage force. You can't.
They're going to take it away.
Well, they're going to take it away, but if you minimize like what they did in Manhattan, you only give them 15 turnovers.
That's such an outlier for what Iowa State is that I think you just have to overcome what they're going to do in that.
Well, because with their crowd, they're going to speed you up a little bit at times, and you got to maintain your composure. That's going to be a really, really tough game. But I think if K-State can beat Texas, they are going to know. Like Kansas State knows that a win against Iowa State, like Jerome Tang can preach it. Now, it may put too much pressure on these guys' shoulders. I don't know, but you can tell them, like, hey, this is a win and you're in game. Now, I know Jerome said that too with Cincinnati, kind of, and the KU being an NCAA tournament game. So maybe we don't want to say that, but I think they can win it. And I think if they do, they're in. So.
Well, I was looking through this. I mean, TJ Otzelberger is 1-2 in the Big 12 tournament since he got to Iowa State as the head coach. And you know what they say about TJ Otzelberger in general: January, February, not TJ Otzelberger, April. So I do think that's working in the favor of K-State if that matchup were to come up.
Didn't they go to the Sweet 16 like 2 years ago or something?
Well, whatever.
You mean when they got to they played LSU, who had fired their coach for cheating. So
in Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, that was a nice win for him.
And got in at 7-11, which is the other thing. It's frustrating to be sitting here talking. That was the year they got in at 7-11, and then last year they dropped a 40-burger in terms of total points scored, I believe, against Pitt, right, in the first round of the tourney.
I feel bad for Tucker if he's listening to this part of our show. Maybe he's not.
No, don't be mean, DUI.
But Mizzou just went 0-18 in the SEC. Iowa State did go 0-18 in the Big 12 not even 5 years ago.
So see, Tucker, if you do listen to that, there's reason that a quick turnaround can happen because Otzelberger did it. So
yep.
Just go find somebody that can't fit in their polo, get rid of Dennis Gates, and you'll be okay.
Tell Dennis to start shopping at Baby Gap with TJ. And you can get it.
No, I mean, honestly, the bigger thing is that you need to go tell Dennis Gates to get his student managers to work during those timeouts. I mean, that's clearly what it is here too. They get the guys that are sweeping the floor, make sure that they've got little notebooks, and everything will be all right.
I'm a little worried, John, that with their fans being in Bramlage and everything, or in the T-Mobile Center, that they might have their elaborate setup.
And Jim Carrey, they're Jim Carrey lookalike.
Well, these guys, I can bring this up real quick. Did you see the guy with the T-shirt? It's like if they could just be good at trolling, I would appreciate it more, but they're not at all. Other than Cyclone Larry, who's about as good as anybody alive at it. You got this guy proudly wearing a shirt that says, "I was there when Jerome Tang almost fought Jim Carrey in Ames." Like, it's like not funny. Like, if it were good smack talk, I'd be like, touche, but it's like, dude, you guys are so wretchedly bad at this. If Cyclone Larry could just set up like a nice little a school for them, a class, perhaps a TED Talk. Could Larry do a TED Talk? If Cyclone Larry could do a TED Talk and just send it out, get it on Jamie Pollard's email list and send it out to everybody so that you could at least just be kind of competent in some internet trolling, it would just help the discourse a lot. Because
the worst thing is, John, they think it's like funny. Like, they think it's hilarious, those shirts. Like, did you see some of the reactions? Oh my God, this is great. Look at this. I was embarrassed for him.
It was like uncomfortable. It kind of like you look at it and you're kind of like, boy, I'm just like embarrassed for everybody involved here. It was that kind of a feeling for sure. Anyway, final thoughts here, guys. Big 12 tournament, NCAA tournament, whatever it might be. DY?
Got nothing.
No. Wait, like a prediction, maybe? DY, when you think they're going to beat Texas? I guess you kind of said that already. You got them as 6.8.
Yeah, I think they beat Texas.
Okay. You got them losing to Iowa State?
I don't know how I feel yet.
Okay.
I think I think I'm probably at like a 6 on the Texas game. And I think it's a tall ask to say, hey, play 3 games in a row, capable, like quality beating quad 1 teams, especially when you're playing Iowa State and in Kansas City. It's a really tall ask for this team. We just have not seen them. Have they had a stretch this year where they've been that consistent? I mean, I guess that they would play 3 straight overtime games at one point. That was about as consistent as they've been for a 3-game stretch. So I don't know. I think it's hard to predict that. So I would predict they go 1-1.
Yeah, it's funny looking back on how the season unfolded and transpired at times. And we were going through thought exercises a little bit in our group chats that we're in. And KSU_fan kind of piggyback on what I said and made it, said it better than me. What the one game that Kansas State needs to have back that they don't get to have back that they should have definitely won is against Texas Tech and Lubbock. Obviously, that's another quad 1 win, maybe even quad 1A, I don't know. But they were up by 8 at the under 4 timeout. I mean, that's just one you can't cough away, and it sucks that it happened that way. But I mean, that's painful, and if you get that back, you're probably in the NCAA tournament. But not only that, you know what happens? Now, maybe those other results change afterwards because of that game. But Kansas State starts the year 5-0 in the Big 12 if that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Tech would have been a quad 1A because it was their 30th in the net now. So top 40 on the road. Also, Cincinnati would have been borderline close. They're 41st in the net right now.
Yeah. So I say that, John, to your consistency thing, which you are totally correct, but they were 3 minutes and 48 seconds away from starting 5-0 in the Big 12.
Touche.
I'm at a 6.4 confidence level, splitting the baby there between 6.8 and 6.0 on beating Texas, and then I'm at I'll reassess where I'm at on Iowa State when the time comes. Yeah, that's right. Well, maybe that's not the right way to sit. Now I need to think about that. Maybe I just said something that's offensive too. Anyways, so and then I'll reassess where I'm at for Iowa State when that time comes. So stay tuned. I'm not going to predict yet on that.
All right, well, go check out the new drop at homefieldapparel.com. Use promo code 3MAW23 for 15% off your first order. And, of course, check out our friends, Holiday Distillery. Get Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon for this week in the NCAA tournament. If you're taking work off, 360 vodka, all that stuff can definitely help you there. Appreciate the work of Nick Springer behind the scenes, as always. Thanks to Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. For those guys, I am John Kurtz. Take care. We'll talk to you soon here on 3MAW.